Good morning and welcome to the first ever edition of BASCH and the Fellas talking life and sports. A show for the typical everyday sports fan created by a few everyday sports fans. I'm your host Thomas Bosch and we thank you for tuning in. On today's show we'll have a couple of my good friends on to discuss topics ranging from NBA free agency, NFL players' unhappy reaction to these new NBA contracts, gambling on professional sports, and much more. Joining me in studio today, I'll have fellow New York native, my good friend Johnny Taberzi. Also calling into the show later on from Atlanta, Georgia will be the money man Joe Balcom, giving his perspective on sports gambling and what it's like to be a Carolina Panthers fan in hostile territory. With this being our first show ever, we're going to get right down to the nuts and bolts of it. I'm going to go ahead and get my first guest in studio right now to hammer out some of the topics on today's agenda. And there he is. All right, y'all, I've got a good friend of mine in studio today joining me. My Long Island brother from another mother, Johnny Taberzi, joins me to discuss the NBA free agency period and why it may affect how NFL players view their future contracts. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Hello, Los Angeles. I always wanted to do that. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in to shoot the breeze, man.
Always a pleasure.
All right, let's get right into this.
All right.
Let's talk NBA contracts for a second. What do you think about the type of money that's being dumped on players this free agency period? Too much?
Yes, I think it's ridiculous how much B players are making in the NBA.
I mean, it's great. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that somebody like Bismack Biyombo got like $70 million.
Yeah.
He showed up for like 5 games in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's a homer for you, so you would think that you would be excited that
yeah, as a Charlotte Hornets fan, we did draft him originally. Yeah, but we let him go. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I'm again Hornets fan, Nick Batum, $120 million for 5 years. I mean, we need him, but that's a lot of money for not a superstar. I mean, paying over $100 million for a contract for a non-superstar, LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, a Russell Westbrook, whatever you might be. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Talking about this free agency, we've heard a lot of NFL players voice or tweet or Instagram or whatever social media outlet being used speak out on these NBA contracts. And they're saying they seem exorbitant. Do you think NFL players have a legit gripe, about being underpaid?
Yes and no.
At least comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I guess the way I look at it is a lot of NFL players have usually the ability to play 2 different sports, and they did choose to play football knowing that, they kind of...
Well, that's not true. Some of these offensive linemen couldn't have been baseball players. That's where the real money's at.
That's true. That is also true. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a lot of fat dudes in baseball, so I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, my boy Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's smacking home runs. Yeah. I mean, I think you have to take into account a few factors. I think the size of the teams, the number of players on a team. There's 50 to 60 players on an NFL squad.
Right.
An NBA team has 13 players. Right. And then I don't even know how their practice squad system works, but I'm pretty sure they just pull people up from D-League. They don't actually pay practice squad players. So 13 players versus 50 something.
Right.
But at the same time, I think that NFL players, they have a much more demanding job in terms of the physical nature of it.
Absolutely.
You literally need all the players on a team to be cohesive versus you could have some 2 really good players on an NBA team, pay them a lot of money, and it could be a good team.
I mean, legitimately, you could play with 6 guys.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and then just have crappy players on the back end of the bench.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, so I mean, I personally, I don't blame NFL players for wanting to set up their families for a generation or 2. If I'm one of these NBA players, I couldn't be happier for the increase in the salary cap for all these teams. I mean, as a matter of fact, it goes up again next year. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy talk.
And there's a floor. So they have to spend a certain amount of money that they're required. So they really have no choice but to overpay a lot of these players to fulfill the floor of the salary cap, never mind the ceiling.
Yeah, I think there's like a 9% increase in the cap again next year, which is I mean, they're already spending like $150 million a year on these players. You know, I don't know what my Charlotte Hornets are doing with all that money because we didn't sign anybody in free agency, but you know, I mean,
they got to do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money. And, you know, the NBA or the NFL has, you know, a similar cap, but more players to pay.
Right.
You know, the average length of their career is shorter in the NFL, too. So it's like that guaranteed. And the guaranteed money, it's probably the most important part. NBA contracts are guaranteed versus NFL contracts. They get a certain amount of guaranteed money, and then they may get all of it. But, you know, that's not a guarantee.
No, how often do you see that? I mean, you're always seeing players restructure their deals towards the back end. And, you know, a lot of these NFL contracts, they're not real. They turn around and say, oh, you're going to make $115 million over the next 5 years. But realistically,
right, they cut them after 3.
Yeah,
because they don't want to. Yeah, they put all the big money on the back end of the contract. So they're either going to cut the player and someone else is going to eat that contract, or they're just going to, you know, what are we calling it?
Restructuring?
Yeah, restructure. Yeah, sorry. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, restructure these contracts. Yeah. You know, I would place a lot of the NFL players' resentment towards their, you know, by today's professional sports standards, underwhelming pay scale on the owners. I mean, do you think the owners make too much money? I mean, some of these franchises are worth several $billion.
Yeah, it is crazy, especially with the new TV deals that are falling into place, which is also helping increase not only the NBA cap, but also the NFL cap. So, you know, yes, the caps are raising for the amount that they have spent on the players, but they're not losing out on money, these owners. They're still making a bucket load.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Panthers fan. The Panthers in the Forbes money list, they're worth $2 billion. Mm-hmm. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think a lot of the problem here is the players aren't being represented in the correct way. I believe that NFL players or representatives have dropped the ball when going to the negotiating table for CBA talks, collective bargaining talks. Do you think they should have stood tall when dealing with owners in terms of salary cap increase for each team?
Well, I think what the problem is that, again, going back to how much these franchises are worth and how much these owners are worth, they have the ability, if there's a lockout, to stay locked out, and they're not really going to lose their shirts. A lot of these players, especially, you know, you're talking number 11 to 53 that are getting paid only, let's say, a couple million a year, they sit out.
If that, I mean, I think league minimum right now is like $450,000 a year.
It's like 560 something. Around,
yeah, something like
there.
That. Even practice squad players get paid 110.
Yeah. After taxes, you're down to 70.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well go be a manager at a restaurant somewhere, you know? I mean, that's about the equivalent of the money. Only restaurant managers don't have to get popped in their face, you know, by 300-pound dudes. I'm just saying.
Right. I mean, the other thing, too, is the average career in the NFL is, 4.5 years? So really, after that rookie contract, you know, if they are able to get a second contract, and you're talking, obviously, you know, the good to elite players, obviously getting multiple contracts, they may only have 1 or 2 other opportunities to sign for big money, where these NBA guys are playing for 20 seasons. They're signing 5, 6, 7. Now with the way everybody's doing only 1-2 year deals, you know, they could sign 10 different contracts throughout their career and continue to increase the amount of money that they're making, where you don't have that ability as an NFL player because you don't have the ability to play that long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, I think the collective bargaining talks are another 2 years down the road, but I think that someone should have a serious conversation about, I mean, I'm not saying all these professional athletes that make millions of dollars have a whole lot of room to complain because they play a game for a living.
Right.
But that is a, you know, short time period, especially when it comes to the NFL. So I think coming into the next CBA talks that they need to do something about the cap. I mean, they make all these rule changes every year. You know, these owners are making hand over fist money. There's plenty of money to be spent. I mean, in most cases, these owners are getting taxpayer money for their own stadiums that they're building. Like, that's, I mean, they've got plenty of money.
At case in point, your Carolina Panthers, they're getting tax money from both North Carolina and South Carolina because Jerry Richardson's smart, and it makes it both states' teams. So he's collecting double the money.
Hey, don't talk bad about my Panthers. Jerry Richardson's a pimp.
Hey, you know what? Giants play in Jersey in their New York team, so really, I'm sure that they're profiting on taxes from both states also.
Yes. All right, so back to the NBA real quick. I need a top 3 rundown from you. Who do you think were the top 3 teams in NBA free agency this year? And knowing you as well as I do, I know who one of these teams will be. Let's hear it.
All right, so I guess we'll go in order, 3 down. So I'm going to give my New York Knicks the 3rd. I think they had
really?
a win-win.
You don't give them the number 1?
No. Actually, I think my number 1's going to surprise you. But the Knicks signing or trading for Derrick Rose with only 1 year left on his contract is a win-win because it's going to bring tickets and fans. Give them hope, give them another superstar. Plus, he's coming back. I think this year is the year that we'll see if he can bounce back to be close to his MVP form. You got Joakim Noah, who's going to be phenomenal, especially vocally and also helping out Porzingis.
Yeah.
Then we signed, your boy Lee.
Courtney Lee. I miss you already, baby.
Yeah, and then who was the other one? The other point guard that we just signed, Brandon Jennings.
Yeah, I mean, you guys made it as a Knicks fan, which Johnny is clearly. I think you guys did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
and now we'll just see if everybody can stay healthy.
Hey, and if we don't and we tank, we got draft picks this year. So either way, it's a win-win.
Right.
So that's 3. Number 2, actually, believe it or not, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls.
That D Wade signing really changed things.
Even the Rajon Rondo, I think, was under the radar. I know
Rondo
he
sucks,
used to be
man.
great. Hey, you know what?
Rondo sucks. He might be able to throw up 15 assists a night, but he can't shoot. He's a bad teammate. I mean, listen.
Here's the thing, though. He put up more assists than both Rose and Butler combined last year. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure Rondo and Derrick Rose shooting percentages are pretty close. So I think, for what they paid him. Now, the only thing that is a little weird is they are going to definitely be playing small ball, with those 3 having to be on their court. Somebody's going to be playing small forward, and they're all not small forward.
Did the Bulls re-sign Pau Gasol?
Not yet. I don't believe. I know that he was looking to go to the Spurs, but I don't think he actually signed with anybody yet, but I could be wrong.
That would be a big loss.
Yeah. All right, and then my number 1 team, actually, believe it or not, and it is actually still continuing, so this really could solidify it within the next week, is the Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics, young, they still have a lot of draft picks over the next couple of years. They're looking to make a trade for Blake Griffin, which came in the news.
Heard that.
And then they're also talking about, with Durant leaving the Thunder, they have the most assets to trade for Westbrook. Then they also just brought in, who did we just talk about? Boston bringing in
Al Horford.
So you got a big man that can score. You got a point guard. You got a young team.
They played well last year.
What did they have? 46 wins.
They were right there with my Hornets.
Yep. So if they pull off this Blake Griffin trade and or the Westbrook trade, I think that solidifies them being the best. And I know everybody's talking about the Warriors and bringing Durant, but I mean, how much better can they get?
Right. How do you improve? How can you improve on 73 wins?
So that's why I wouldn't put them in the top 3. Obviously, it was a big move, but I think that
overall, but I mean, they lost Barbosa. They lost a couple, but they lost Bogut. They lost a couple of people,
Yeah, but they are looking to sign Jermaine O'Neal. I mean, they got enough guys.
Jermaine O'Neal. Yeah, let's bring Jermaine O'Neal back. How old is he? Like 45, 50?
We're also talking to Ray Allen again.
Well, and you know what? Speaking of the Celtics, they actually their rookie that they drafted with the number 3 pick, Jaylen Brown. He's been killing it in summer league.
Yeah,
killing it. He put up like 26 and 12 last night in one of the summer league games. I know it's summer league, but still.
Well, they also got a young point guard in Isaiah Thomas, which has been played real well last year.
Yeah, and, I'm not a big Isaiah Thomas fan because he took Kemba Walker's spot in the All-Star game. I can't even believe it. Kemba Walker was like the most improved point guard last year. Anyways, that's just me talking my homer talk. All right, last question. Now that they both retired, whose career do you admire more, Tim Duncan or Kobe's?
I'm going to say Tim Duncan for a couple different reasons. Not only do I think as a big man and having a phenomenal shot, a long-lasting career, I kind of look at the whole perspective of even his off-the-court lifestyle and antics and whatnot. I think he was just overall a better role model, phenomenal player, and definitely can compete in the top 10. I've seen people talking about him being a top 5 player all time.
That's always a tough list. But yeah, I agree with you. He kept his head low. He was moving. He stayed moving. He always, 19-time All-Star. That's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. But Kobe is Kobe.
He is, but also Kobe's last couple of years, obviously started to fall off big time, where Duncan slowly started to fade away, but never really affected his team in terms of his performance, where obviously Kobe 100% affected the Lakers' ability to win over the past couple of years because
they overpaid him. They couldn't get players. He was hurt the last 3 out of the last 4 years.
He needs
pretty
to
much
take 76 out of the 100 shots a game.
Hey, he did score 60 in his last NBA game.
He did score 60.
Tim Duncan didn't do that.
Yeah, but I also believe that they, I think, didn't they play 5-on-4?
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming in, sir. I really do. Always a pleasure talking sports with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will do this again soon.
Well, thank you for having me.
Johnny Taberzi, everyone.
Okay, so coming up next, we have one of my longtime friends calling in to talk gambling and what sports betting means to the growth of professional sports leagues. Calling in now to join the show is a North Carolina native who somehow loves living in Atlanta, the money man Joe Backham. I'm not sure I know anyone more familiar or successful when it comes to sports gambling, at least not personally. We'll get his take on the effect gambling has on fan interest. Also, we'll ask him if he regrets not making a particular bet before the start of last year's NFL season. Joey B, thanks for joining the show, sir. How are you today, my friend?
Morning, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, man. First off, I'd like to say happy anniversary to you. I heard you got 7 years under your belt.
Yep, I know. For some reason, she's still with me.
Married life, man.
Yep.
You're a better man than I, sir. I'm sure I'm not far behind you on that path, though. If Victoria has anything to say about it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We're just going to get right into it. Knock out a few questions, kind of get your take on gambling, the effects it has on sports, so on and so forth. All right. First question, out of curiosity, what won't you bet on in terms of sports? Is there anything? Is there anything?
There's not much. I mean, I've definitely been known to bet on soccer and some of the more random sports.
Are you American? Who bets on soccer?
USA plays soccer, right?
Well, that's true. All right, that's true. That's true.
But no, there's.
What about like tennis or like?
I've never bet on
polo?
tennis, so that's a good one. Or like cricket. A lot of the Indian guys I work with are huge into cricket, and they're always talking about betting on that. And I've never bet on cricket.
I tried to watch cricket once, and it did not work out well for me at all. I had no idea what was going on.
I'm the same way. I've watched like a match with some guys I work with at lunch one day, and I was like, I don't understand any of this. So look, there's some things that I don't bet on.
What about do you think Vegas takes bets on polo? Like
maybe during the Olympics.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, God.
I don't know. Vegas takes bets on anything, so I would guess so.
That's true. All right. So, do you consider yourself a successful gambler?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I'm definitely in the positive.
After all these years, you're still in the positive.
Yeah, because of one particular win.
All right, well, we'll get to that later. All right.
But yeah, I mean, I go to Vegas and might lose. I'm gonna bring $1,000 or $2,000 out there, and sometimes I come back down. But I think last time I went, I came back down about 1,100. But the time before, I came back up 1,600. So
oh, really? No.
Here and there. I mean, it's kind of usually a wash. I feel like.
How many times have you been to Vegas in the last year?
In the last year?
Yeah.
Between May and May of this year, I went 3 times. May of last year, May of this year. So
I don't think Vegas would be a good place for me. I just don't.
It's a good place for everybody.
All right. So, do you think that gambling helps or hurts sports when you're talking about fan interest?
Honestly, I think it helps. I mean, I think that if you put a bet in on a game, you're obviously going to be way more interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even if you're not interested in a game and you decide to put a bet in on it, then it kind of, that gives you a reason and gives people a reason to watch a particular event they may not watch because they wanted to bet on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like gambling in general makes me watch things that I really would like tune out generally because, if it's not my team, I don't really care. But if I got money riding on it, then I'm probably tuned in till the bitter end,
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I had Allison's little brother was in town during the March Madness, and he'd never bet on sports before, and he threw some money in the place I gamble at, and halfway through the weekend, he's like, man, I don't know how I ever watch sports without gambling on them. This is way more fun.
Well, yeah. And, there's a difference between sports gambling and then like the new trend, which is like FanDuel, DraftKings, like fantasy,
Sure.
Fantasy football sports where they say there's a bit of skill involved in it versus like a straight out or an outright sports bet. And actually, I think that some of these leagues, I know the NBA's commissioner, Adam Silver, is supporting sports betting because for the same reason, he thinks it draws more fan interest. But then you have like the NFL who like is completely against it, But
yeah, but like Robert Kraft is one of the biggest backers of DraftKings. So,
yeah. Well, no. Well, that's the thing is like they look at the differentiation between like FanDuel, DraftKings, and actual sports betting. And the NFL is like one of the major sponsors of like DraftKings and FanDuel. So it's
for sure.
It's kind of hypocritical, but I mean.
Oh, it's definitely hypocritical.
So you live in Atlanta. As a Panthers fan living in Atlanta, do you catch a lot of crap from the Falcon faithful? The teams are division rivals.
Yes, all the time.
Do you?
Thankfully for me, it's been we've been a lot better team than the Falcons the last 3 years. So,
so there's probably not a whole lot they can say about it.
Not a whole lot. I mean, even last year, the only loss we had was to them, and that was like a huge deal for Falcons fans to be able to talk trash to me.
Right.
But
right.
At that point, I'm like, what do I care? I haven't lost a game all season until now. So.
That's true. So you have no problem rocking your Panthers gear around Atlanta.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I'm not one to keep my mouth quiet very often when it comes to Panthers trash talking. But yeah, I mean, there's been years where it's been worse than others. We've had bad seasons when I've lived down here, and it's definitely not fun being a Panthers fan at that point living here.
Yeah.
But as a recent past, it's been fun because we've been a pretty good team the last few years. So it's more me being able to talk trash to them than them talking trash to me.
Right. Being in Atlanta, full time. What can you tell from what you can tell? What's the general feeling in Atlanta going into the season about this season about the Falcons? They got a new stadium going up. They got a second-year head coach. They have a franchise quarterback. You think those Dirty Bird fans are feeling confident?
I would say no. Based on the sports radio down here and just talking with, almost all my friends are Falcons fans down here, and just talking to them, I don't know if they're not confident or the fact is that they know that the Panthers have a very good team coming back again this year.
Yeah.
And they just kind of understand the realization that they're probably not going to win the division.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some talk about
and they didn't make good draft picks. They went, they're all about picking up the secondary, and I don't know. We'll see. I do not feel that they're confident, though. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
I think that they don't plan to make the playoffs.
I feel like they have a decent team, but for some reason, the last couple of years they can't put it together. I mean, Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. They've got a new coach in Dan Snyder. He did a good job. I don't get it, but I hope they keep messing up because
they started out great last year, and then they choked the whole second half of the season. So
yeah.
We'll see. I mean, the new stadium, it's coming along, but they're also hundreds of millions of dollars over budget on that. So that's another little bit of a disaster. Between that and the Brave stadiums, they got a whole bunch of stuff going on down here.
Yeah. All right. So back to the gambling part. How much do you wish that you could go back before the start of last season and bet on the Panthers to reach a Super Bowl? What do you think? First off, what do you think the odds were?
I had them at 50-1. I did put that bet in.
Oh, you did put the bet in?
Yeah. I was in Vegas last probably May or July range, and I got it in at 50-1 for $50 Unfortunately, it wasn't just to make the Super Bowl, though. It was to win it.
So you just missed on that.
Just missed that bet.
What's the payout on that? What would have been the payout on it had you won?
$2,500 for $50.
Oh my god. Maybe I do need to get into betting, gambling.
It was a rough loss. I mean, and I could have hedged the bet and bet on the Broncos because they were paying plus 150. So I could have put $1,000 down on them and guaranteed myself a $1,500 profit no matter what. But instead, I rode the boys and went down with them.
We were so close.
Yeah.
Close. And for everybody out there, I am a huge Panthers fan, so I'm a homer too. So, would you place the same wager on the Panthers this season?
Well, I was just in Vegas and I didn't. I think when I was out there, they were only 8 or 10 to 1. So I mean, at that point, putting $50 down, what the heck? What is what's $50? I mean, $500 payout, I guess. But after last year when it would have been a $2,500 payout, it just doesn't seem as cool.
Yeah,
I might still put it on it. Who knows?
Yeah, we're expected to do a lot better this year. So yeah, I gotta know, what is the most amount of money you've ever won on a single sporting event?
I mean, I won.
Give it to me straight, Joe.
Well, on a single sporting event, if you include DraftKings, I did win the $100,000 on DraftKings.
You won $100,000 on DraftKings.
$100,000 on a $3 bet. So that was pretty impressive.
Now, what sport was it?
Golf.
Golf. You won.
Golf.
You won $100,000 on golf through DraftKings.
Yep. Thanks to Davis Love III.
I hate you. I mean, I love you, but I hate you. That is
it was pretty cool.
incredible.
I mean, definitely, one of those once in a lifetime kind of hits. And being a big gambler like I am, it's always nice to have some. Of course, now it's kind of jaded me though, because I'm like, oh, I can win $1,000. Who cares? Like, whatever.
Well, you're probably using the $100,000 to make those wagers, so works out in your favor. And speaking of your wife, and the anniversary you guys just had. Now, how does your wife, Allison, feel about your fascination with gambling? I mean, after a win like that, she's got to probably feel pretty good about it, right?
Yeah. Thankfully, she's never been one to give me grief about gambling.
And this was before you won that.
Before I won the money.
money.
I mean, she knew, but like I said, I'm a decent gambler. I've never lost anything big, maybe a couple grand here and there if I go to Vegas. But for the most part, I've been pretty decent at gambling, and I'm pretty smart on my betting. But, now she definitely has no room to ever talk. I feel like I kind of got myself a pass for life.
Yeah. I mean, I've known you for 15 years, and I've never known you to be scared to place a bet.
No, never.
Well,
scared money don't make money, man.
That's right.
That's my theme in life.
That's awesome. All right, the money man, Joe Bauckham, thanks for calling the show, sir. I appreciate you being part of this experiment. Hopefully we'll do it again real soon. Keep those disgusting, dirty Falcons fans in line down there for me, will you?
Oh, yeah. No question. We'll do.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
All right, well, it looks like we're about out of time for today's show, but don't fret. T-Bosch and the fellas talking life and sports will be back next week with some more insight from my fellow crazy sports fan friends. I'd like to thank Johnny Taberzi and the money man Joe Bauckham for weighing in today. We hope you enjoyed our show and our take on some of the current issues going on in the sports world. If there's certain topics you'd like us to discuss or have questions about, please email me at thomasbosch23@gmail.com. That's Thomas, B-A-S-C-H 23@gmail.com. And we'll do our best to answer your questions and hash out the burning issues of the day. Until next time, we are T-Bosch and the fellas talking life and sports.